Welcome to Quick Speak the English podcast that helps you learn English quickly and effectively. In this episode, we're going to be exploring a really interesting concept, the idea of being alone but not broken.
It's a fascinating paradox, right?
Yeah?
We live in a world that constantly emphasizes connection, and being social and being engaged with other people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this growing awareness of the importance of solitude
Yeah,
for personal well-being and even for things like creativity.
absolutely. And I think to start off, it's really important to define these terms because
Yeah.
being alone and feeling lonely, they're often used interchangeably, but they really represent very different experiences.
Absolutely. Being alone, it's simply a state of being. You're physically by yourself.
Right.
Loneliness, that's an emotional state. It's a feeling of emptiness or disconnection.
Yeah.
And that can actually occur even when you're surrounded by other people.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you can be lonely in a crowd.
Exactly. And conversely, you can be perfectly content and fulfilled when you're physically alone.
Yeah.
Think about, those moments when you're engrossed in a favorite hobby or lost in a good book or just enjoying the peace and quiet of nature. You're alone, but you don't feel lonely.
Yeah, you're content, right? It's about finding that sense of contentment and fulfillment in your own company.
Exactly.
But how do we get there? How do we shift from a fear of solitude to an appreciation of it?
Well, I think one of the first steps is to challenge those negative connotations
Yeah.
that we associate with being alone. So often we view solitude as something to be avoided, a sign of social inadequacy or
Right.
failure. But what if we reframe it as an opportunity?
An opportunity for what?
An opportunity for introspection, for self-discovery, for creative exploration. When we're constantly bombarded with external stimuli, social media notifications, work demands the hustle and bustle of daily life, it's easy to lose touch with ourselves.
Yeah, we get so caught up in the external noise that we forget to kind of tune into our own inner world.
Precisely. And solitude provides that space, that quiet time, to reconnect with ourselves, to listen to our thoughts and feelings, to explore our interests and passions without distraction. It's a chance to recharge our batteries and emerge feeling refreshed and revitalized.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like taking a break from the world to reconnect with ourselves, to remember who we are at our core.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, the idea of being alone can trigger feelings of anxiety or discomfort. So how do we overcome that initial resistance?
It takes practice, and it's about gradually easing yourself into it. Start with small pockets of solitude, maybe 15 minutes of quiet time in the morning before the day begins, or a half-hour walk in nature after work.
It's about creating those little rituals, those moments of intentional solitude that you can look forward to.
Exactly. And as you become more comfortable with being alone, you can gradually increase the duration and frequency of those moments.
Yeah.
You might even find yourself craving that quiet time, that space to just be.
So it's about shifting our perspective from viewing solitude as a punishment or something to be endured to seeing it as a gift, a time for rejuvenation and self-discovery.
Exactly. And as we become more comfortable with solitude, we start to realize that we're not defined by our social connections, our relationship status, or the number of followers we have on social media. Our worth comes from within.
It's about cultivating that sense of inner strength and self-reliance, knowing that we're complete and whole even when we're alone.
And that realization can be incredibly liberating. It frees us from the pressure to constantly seek external validation and allows us to focus on developing a deeper, more authentic relationship with ourselves.
So embracing solitude is not about isolating ourselves from the world, but rather about creating a healthy balance between connection and solitude, between engaging with the external world and nurturing our inner world.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we can move between the two with ease and grace, knowing that both are essential for a fulfilling and meaningful life.
This is fascinating. We've talked about the difference between being alone and feeling lonely, and how shifting our perspective on solitude can open up these opportunities for introspection and self-discovery. But how do we actually tap into those benefits? How do we turn those moments of solitude into catalysts for growth and creativity?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore further in the next part of our conversation.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to diving deeper into that. But before we move on, I want to remind our listeners.
To subscribe to Quick Speak and visit our website in the description for more learning materials like vocabulary lists and exercises from today's episode. Keep practicing, and we'll see you in part 2. Welcome back to Quick Speak.
In the last part, we talked about the difference between being alone and feeling lonely, and how shifting our perspective on solitude can open up opportunities for introspection and self-discovery.
Yeah, we also touched on the idea that solitude can be a catalyst for creativity.
Right.
But how do we actually tap into that creative potential? How do we turn those moments of solitude into something truly productive? That's where the concept of intentional solitude comes in.
Mm.
It's not just about being physically alone.
Right.
It's about consciously choosing to create space for yourself, to disconnect from the external world and tap into your inner world.
So it's about being deliberate about our solitude, not just letting it happen by chance.
Exactly. And that might involve setting aside specific time in your day or week for solitude, creating a quiet space in your home where you can unplug and unwind,
Hmm.
or even taking a solo retreat to a place where you can truly disconnect.
It's about creating those boundaries and protecting that time and space for ourselves.
Now, once you've created that space for solitude, the next step is to figure out how you want to use it. What activities help you feel most connected to yourself, most creative, most at peace?
It's about knowing yourself and what brings you joy and fulfillment.
For some people, it might be spending time in nature,
Yeah.
going for walks in the park or hiking in the woods.
Nature has a way of calming the mind and inspiring creativity.
For others, it might be engaging in creative pursuits, like writing, painting, or playing music.
Those activities allow us to express ourselves, to explore our emotions, and to tap into our imagination.
And for some, it might be simply sitting in silence, meditating, or practicing mindfulness.
Those practices help us quiet the mental chatter and connect with a deeper sense of peace and stillness within ourselves.
The key is to experiment, to try different things and see what resonates with you most. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to intentional solitude.
It's about finding what works for you, what helps you feel most alive and connected to your true self.
And as you explore different activities, you might be surprised by what you discover about yourself.
Yeah,
You might uncover hidden talents or passions that you never knew you had.
that's exciting.
Or you might simply gain a deeper appreciation for the simple things in life. The beauty of a sunset, the sound of birds singing, the feeling of the sun on your skin.
Those are all wonderful things.
It's about opening yourself up to new experiences and allowing yourself to be present in the moment without judgment or expectation.
Now, we've talked about creating space for solitude and finding activities that help us tap into our creative potential. But what about those moments when our minds start to race?
Yeah.
When those negative thoughts and self-doubt creep in, how do we deal with that?
That's where mindfulness comes in. It's about learning to observe those thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them.
Right. It's about recognizing that our thoughts are not facts. They're simply mental events that come and go.
And by learning to observe our thoughts without judgment, we can start to detach from them and create a sense of space between our thoughts and our sense of self.
So it's about creating that distance that allows us to see our thoughts more objectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we're able to do that, we're less likely to get caught up in those negative thought patterns that can hold us back.
We can start to choose more positive and empowering thoughts that support our growth and well-being.
Now, mindfulness takes practice, and it's not always easy, especially when we're first starting out.
It's like building a muscle. The more we practice, the stronger we become.
And there are many different ways to practice mindfulness. You can start with simple breathing exercises or guided meditations.
Okay.
Or you can try incorporating mindfulness into everyday activities, like walking, eating, or even washing the dishes.
It's a way to bring more intention to our daily lives.
The key is to find what works for you and to make it a regular part of your routine.
Okay.
And as you become more mindful, you'll start to notice a shift in your perspective. You'll become more aware of your thoughts and feelings, and you'll be better equipped to manage them in a healthy way.
You'll also start to appreciate the present moment more fully, savoring the simple joys of life, and feeling a deeper sense of gratitude for all that you have.
So mindfulness is not just about calming the mind, it's about cultivating a more positive and fulfilling way of being.
Yeah.
It's about learning to live in the present moment with awareness and acceptance, embracing all that life has to offer.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm already starting to feel more empowered by the idea of intentional solitude and the power of mindfulness.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, embracing solitude is a journey. It's not about achieving perfection or becoming a hermit. It's about finding a balance that works for you and honoring your need for both connection and solitude.
And it's about recognizing that solitude is not a weakness, but a strength, a source of creativity, growth, and renewal.
Exactly. So as we move into the final part of our conversation, let's explore some practical strategies for incorporating intentional solitude into our daily lives and turning those moments of solitude into opportunities for lasting positive change.
Sounds great. I'm excited to learn more. But before we continue, I want to remind our listeners, welcome back to Quick Speak. In the previous parts, we talked about the power of solitude, the importance of mindfulness, and how intentional solitude can help us tap into our creative potential. But now let's get even more practical. What are some specific strategies we can use to make solitude a regular and rewarding part of our lives?
Um, that's a great question. And I think it's important to start by recognizing that solitude doesn't have to be this grand gesture. It doesn't require, a silent retreat or a cabin in the woods.
Right.
It can be as simple as carving out small pockets of time in our daily routines.
So even like 5 or 10 minutes here or there can make a difference.
Absolutely. One simple strategy is to start your day with a few minutes of quiet time before the demands of the day take over. This could involve meditation journaling or simply sitting in silence and enjoying a cup of coffee.
It's about setting the tone for the day and creating a sense of calm and intention before the busyness sets in.
Another strategy is to incorporate mindful moments into your daily activities. Instead of rushing through your commute, try paying attention to the sights and sounds around you. Really savor each bite of your lunch or take a few deep breaths before responding to a stressful email.
It's about bringing that sense of presence and awareness to even the most mundane tasks.
And if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or drained during the day, try taking a few minutes to step away from your desk and go for a walk, or find a quiet spot to sit and simply breathe.
Yeah, those little breaks can make a world of difference in helping us recharge and refocus.
Now, beyond those daily practices, it can also be helpful to schedule more extended periods of solitude into your week or month. This could be anything from an hour-long yoga class to a weekend getaway to a place where you can disconnect and reconnect with yourself.
It's about giving ourselves permission to prioritize our well-being and create space for the things that nourish our mind, body, and soul.
And as you start to incorporate more solitude into your life, you might find that your relationship with technology changes. You might feel less compelled to constantly check your phone or scroll through social media.
Yeah, it's about becoming more intentional about our technology use and recognizing when it's serving us and when it's distracting us from the things that truly matter.
And speaking of distractions, creating a designated space for solitude in your home can be incredibly helpful. This could be a cozy reading nook, a meditation corner, or even just a chair by the window where you can sit and enjoy the view.
Right. It's about having a physical space that signals to your mind and body that it's time to relax and unwind.
Now, I know that for some people, the idea of solitude can be daunting. They might worry about feeling lonely or bored. But I think it's important to remember that solitude is not about isolation. It's about creating space for yourself to connect with your inner world.
And that connection can be incredibly enriching and rewarding.
It allows us to tap into our creativity, to explore our thoughts and feelings, to gain clarity on our values and goals, and to cultivate a deeper sense of self-awareness and peace.
It's about recognizing that we are enough just as we are, and that we don't need constant external stimulation or validation to feel fulfilled.
And as we become more comfortable with solitude, we often find that our relationships with others improve as well.
Because when we're more grounded and centered in ourselves, we're better able to show up for others in a more authentic and meaningful way.
So embracing solitude is not selfish. It's actually a gift we can give to ourselves and to the people we care about.
Rel said, this has been an incredibly enlightening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on the power of solitude, and I'm excited to start incorporating these strategies into my own life.
I'm so glad to hear that. Remember, the journey to embracing solitude is unique for everyone. Start small, experiment, and be patient with yourself. Over time, you'll discover the ways in which solitude can nourish your mind, body, and spirit, and help you live a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And don't forget to subscribe to Quick Speak and visit our website in the description for more learning materials like vocabulary lists and exercises from today's episode. Keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next episode.